Hello, welcome to the Time Capture Pro Job Overview section. To get started, log into your instance. Once you log into your instance, you'll have a series of menu options. All of the menu options differ between different subscriptions. What you see depends on what your instance is subscribed to. In this case, we're going to go to Jobs. Once you get into Jobs, you'll notice on the middle portion here, you have a list of all of the current jobs that are available. Typically, it's sorted by default by ID. IDs are simply created in sequential order, so the next job that we would create would be job number 105, or excuse me, job ID 105. You also have job numbers, in this case, job 59, job 56. It's really up to your establishment how you want to create different job numbers. To create a new job, simply click on New in the upper left-hand corner. From here, you'll be presented with a series of options. Not all of these options are mandatory. You can see the ones that are mandatory have a little star next to them, like the job number, for example, is mandatory. And so you simply start by filling out your new job. So if we have a new job here, is the job complete? More than likely, when you're just starting, it will not be completed, so you leave that as no. And again, all these different options, you do not need to fill out every one of these. It all depends on what your establishment mandates. So here we have pay type, hourly or government hourly, job number, we can do job 100. Here you're able to choose a general contractor or a customer. Now with this type of drop down, you have two options. You can either create a new customer if you haven't already created the customer inside of Time Capture Pro yet, or you can simply select an existing. So if I wanted to select an existing, I push the little button, the plus button, and from here I can search for stuff. So if I wanted to do a search for, say, Ed Keenan, I can simply type in Ed, I hit enter, or I can click this magnifying glass and choose Ed Keenan. And now you'll see that the general contractor has been populated with Ed Keenan. Most of these are pretty straightforward. Site number, general contractor point of contact. Again, same idea here. If you wanted to create a new point of contact, you just click Create New, or you can assign an existing one that's inside of Time Capture Pro. You can also assign any number of additional contacts. You may have one primary contact, and you have a series of additional contacts where you can choose multiple additional contacts that are associated with this particular job. One important note is that all of the phrasing on every one of these fields can be changed to really say anything that you want. So if you didn't want your instance to say GC POC, rather primary contact, for example, this is a very straightforward thing to change, which we will cover in our languages section. And you can also contact Time Capture Pro customer support. Here's an important one, the enable percent tracking. So if this is set to yes, inside of the daily reports that are created for this particular job, the foreman in the front end of Time Capture Pro will have the ability of stating the percent of completion for that particular task that they're filling out. So if your establishment chooses to use percent tracking, this is where you enable that by clicking yes here, and by clicking yes here, you're going to, on the front end during the daily report section, have those fields show up. Additional fields here, address and notes, are pretty straightforward. List ID and edit sequence. Really, you shouldn't touch this section unless you know what you're doing within the QuickBooks configuration. This is if you have QuickBooks configuration enabled in your instance, and the numbers that are used here are used during the transfer of data between Time Capture Pro and QuickBooks. You'll also notice that it says click Save to enable. And now if you look at all these tabs here, there's only 4 tabs, and you have a click Save to enable. Now usually right here is where you would be able to choose to assign additional divisions or tasks to this job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I can click this button up here or this button here. They both do exactly the same thing. You'll notice inside of Time Capture Pro there are a lot of instances where you can do the exact same operation from 2 different places. So clicking here is the same thing. So I'll go ahead and click Save. So now by clicking Save, what I've done is I've made this an official job, if you will, that has an ID associated with it. And you'll notice that I now have a series of tabs that didn't exist before that now have been enabled for this particular job because we've saved this instance. I can always click this little X right there to make that go away. So now you can see I have divisions here, and I also have divisions over here. Again, there's multiple ways of doing the same thing inside the interface. It's really what's easiest for you. So let me continue on with the rest of this page here, and then we're going to jump into divisions and the rest of the tabs. Okay, so you have the option of setting a start date, which is mandatory, end date, customer PO number. Again, all these different settings are really just used if you want to use them inside of your tracking. You'll notice that we have projected hours and actual hours. This is actually driven by future operations. You'll notice that actual hours doesn't have a field here. It's just the number would show up right here if there were actual hours logged against this project or job. And you also have the number of projected hours. So once we start getting into building out the different divisions or tasks, that's where the projected hours would automatically populate. One other important one is email alerts. So let's say you do decide to allow for alerts to take place whenever a status change occurs. You can set up a series of emails here that go to internal emails or even to your customer with separated by a semicolon. And whenever the status changes, so if I change from to be scheduled to on hold, for example, whenever that status changes, you can send out email blasts that would basically notify your customer that the status of the particular job has changed. And again, all of these are configurable as well. Okay, so let's get into how we can create divisions. So every job has a series of tasks underneath it, tasks or divisions. And within each division or task, you can have any number of tracking codes that are associated with it. So a lot of times you can either have a job that has multiple divisions, or maybe you would just have one division and you wanted to be able to easily create that without having to save and come back in and recreate. So let's just use the use case of creating a default division. So if I wanted to click yes here, I could have a default division of, let's just say task 1, and then I can assign labor cost codes or task codes to this. And let's say I want those task codes to be job startup and restaging spoils or loading trucks. Now again, all the different LLCs can change. It's completely customizable to your instance. It all depends on what you're trying to track between the different jobs and tasks or divisions. And this can be created here. So now if I click save right now, what this will do is it will automatically go and create that task 1. So you'll notice that create default division has now gone back to no. And if I open up the divisions, I now will have a task 1 division part of this project. You'll notice that there's a little error here that I need to fix. That's going to be a label for name that's been mislabeled. That's easy to fix. But you'll notice that task 1 has been created. And if I drive into task 1, I can see that the assigned codes on task 1 by clicking assign codes here has been GT1 and GT3. I can also click on toggle unchecked. By clicking this, I simply hide the rest of the unchecked tasks or task codes that now I can simply concentrate on the ones that have been created. Now, before I get into these pieces here, I want to back up a little bit and show you to close out of here a different way of doing the exact same thing we did if you wanted to create multiple divisions instead of just creating the default one when you first create the job. I could also go in the divisions tab here, and I'm going to close my little save notification. The divisions tab here, and I can click create new. So from now, I can go in and create multiple divisions while inside the job. I don't have to just do that default one the first time. The default one's really there for speed. So if I wanted to I was creating a series of jobs and every one of those jobs only had one task or division. That default creation allows you to skip a step and just simply create that task and assign some codes to it very quickly versus having to come back in here. A nice note is that you can maximize this window. So you'll notice that we have a record here that's now been opened. This is a division. And then you have your save and save and close and cancel. This record is really part of the job record, which you can still see the job record is open. So it's really important that when you are creating tasks that you click save and close and then you click save and close to get out, because right now we are essentially editing these records. So if somebody else wanted to come along and try to edit this, they wouldn't be able to because we have it open. So whenever you see a save and close or cancel, you need to be sure to click on save and close and cancel to get out of the record here and then the parent record that we're in here as well. So I can maximize this window by clicking that little max min button here on the side, which will allow me to maximize and minimize that. So now I can create a task. Let's say I want to create another task, say task 2. I can fill in all the different fields here, which are pretty self-explanatory. The job has already been assigned, of course. Task 2 job is the job we're working on now. And then I can jump into assigning codes. Now, assigning codes, you're going to have any number of codes depending on your organization. That is going to be the information that you're trying to track across all your different jobs. So let's say, for example, I want to include supervision and GT5, which is modify previously built forms. So in this example, I have 2 codes. I'm going to click on toggle unchecked again, just so I don't have to look at all the rest of those codes. And from here, I have the ability of changing a couple things. Now, let's say on this job for this task, I don't want to call it supervision, and I don't want to call it 1450L, which is the default values. Instead, I want the code to read 500X, and I want the description to read supervision for whatever reason. So now I have the ability of continually tracking against 1450L, but for this job, I want to call it 500X and supervision. Again, that's just giving you flexibility so that during your daily report creation, you don't have to go and create a bunch of new labor cost codes or tracking codes. You can simply override what this one's called to your foreman on the front end, and to them they're logging against a different one. But really, when it comes back down to reporting, it's all going to drive back down to that appropriate code. Honestly, it just gives flexibility. We can also estimate the number of man hours. So for this particular task, let's say we're going to have 1,000 man hours here. Estimated asset hours, you can estimate the number of asset hours that are required for a particular task. This is really for QuickBooks integration and reporting at a future state, how many assets you're going to have for those hours. This may be a feature that's going to be removed from Time Capture Pro. It's questionable whether we're going to use that at this point. So at this point, you can ignore the estimated asset hours. That will probably go away. And lastly, you can have takeoff quantity. Now, takeoff quantity for supervision, there really isn't a takeoff quantity for that, but there is a takeoff quantity for the number of previously built forms, right? So on this previously built forms, you notice the unit of measurement is each, so there's one of each. So let's say I have 10 previously built forms that I now need to track against. I can say, all right, I have 10 of these. My estimated man hours is 500 hours. And I'm going to leave these 2 blank because I don't want to override the code in the description. Now, the reason this is important for the takeoff quantity is remember when we were first creating this job that we had the ability, I'll go ahead and minimize this, and I'm going to jump back over to our edit within the job. You'll notice that we had the ability of enable percent tracking. That's going to be interesting there because now if I have my foreman say, okay, we've done 2 out of the 10 pre-built forms, they can say that on the daily report, and that all drives back into reporting to say, okay, 2 out of the 10 forms have been completed. However, I've used 50% of my man hours. Now I'm under budget for the number of man hours required. I need to either pick things up or I need to create a change directive or a change order. So that's where this is important here. So I'm going to go ahead and save and close this. And now I'm going to have 2 tasks. I'll have task 1 and task 2 that are now part of my job creation. So if I jump back over here, I've now created a new job number with the different divisions, so such that the daily reports in the front end can be used for this particular job. And again, I can jump into any one of these divisions and edit the assigned codes. I can change the status of this particular task. Again, this is all configurable, so maybe in process. You'll notice that the projected hours automatically filled out. We didn't actually fill that out manually. That was set by the hours here of 1,500 automatically rolling into this field here. So a lot of the fields like projected hours and actual hours and so forth, those the system will take care of for you and you don't need to go through and do manually. Okay, now we have this record open. I'm going to go ahead and close that so we don't keep that locked. And I'm still inside of this job record. You'll also notice a series of other tabs like time and materials, receipts, and time logs. Obviously, this is a brand new job, so we haven't actually logged anything against this yet. But if I wanted to go in and create a new time log or I wanted to create a new receipt, I can simply do that. And again, as the time goes on, the front end system will allow for people to submit receipts and submit time and materials against this job. So time materials, receipts, time logs, clock in and outs, work authorizations. Miscellaneous is a good place if you need to keep notes for a project. So you can have an ongoing note section here for miscellaneous and the miscellaneous features of this job. There's also a spreadsheet. If you needed to use spreadsheet function inside of this job, you could have a spreadsheet to really use for whatever you like. It's there for your convenience. And the last bit, this discussion is a nice feature. So the discussion allows me to say, job started, here we go. And I can add this. Now, I'm Joe Manager. That's who I'm logged in as. As time goes on, the foreman on the front end, the supervisors on the front end, the administrators on the back end, everybody can use these notes here to talk about things that happened on the job. So something happened on this job on this date. It automatically logs it on the date and time and who logged it, and you can simply keep a record of a discussion. So it's a lot like an instant message, if you will, that allows you to keep just stacking information. Then it's a nice audit trail to have for that particular job. Okay, so this is pretty much complete. We've filled out the majority of these fields. A value is another good one too. So this could be a value of $1 million, say, for that particular job. And again, that drives information for reporting. I'm going to go ahead and save and close this. The nice part is that you can easily come back in here at any time to edit this information just by simply coming back in. Remember, I was talking about the locks. This is a good example here of the lock, because when I open the record, it will automatically lock. So I can show you that. So let me click on New Job here. I'm going to open another tab so I can go and see that the lock happened on that job. So right now I'm in this job of New Job, and I come back into this tab and go to the job section. You'll notice there's now a lock there because I am editing it. So Joe Manager has started editing that, which is why it's so important when you're done to click either close or save and close to get back out of that record. Okay, this is Time Capture Pro Job Overview. Any questions, feel free to contact your Time Capture Pro customer support. Thank you very much.